Alright, welcome back everyone to the 9th video in our video series of creating Node.js apps from beginning to end. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the app that we created with our Express generator, and we're going to start editing the code and making this app our own. So first of all, let's go ahead and open this app in our text editor. And once we get that open, let's go ahead and actually run this server and see what it looks like right now. So let's go to our terminal, and I'm going to navigate to that Express app that we've created, and once I'm there, I'm going to run that script we created, dev start, npm run dev start, and you'll see that this is that little bit of info that was kind of set up for us down here. So once we have that up and running, let's go ahead and check it out on our local host. Alright, so Express. Welcome to Express. And you'll see in the view of the index page that it sets an h1 tag to title and then the p tag as welcome to title. So title Express and then a welcome to title Express. So not much there, not too fancy, but there it is. Now, if you remember, if you noticed, they also have a user's route set up for us with a user's router right here, and it's just going to send some basic messaging right there. So let's go ahead and check that out real quick. Okay, so there it is, respond with a resource. This is just some filler boilerplate info for us right here, not too exciting. So let's go ahead and spice things up a little bit. First, what we're going to do is we're going to try to make it look a little better with some Bootstrap. If you don't know what Bootstrap is, it's basically some CSS, which if you don't know what CSS is, it's styling for our web pages. To make it look better than just a blank white page with some text on it, we use CSS to style our elements to make them look better. So Bootstrap is a library of CSS and JavaScript that is predefined for us, and if we just import it into our project, then we can start using those classes and IDs that they set for us, and it creates a responsive, good-looking website very quickly. So let's go ahead and head over to getbootstrap.com and just click this Get Started right here, and they have the CSS, their CSS library. You can download it if you wanted. Head to the downloads page, and then you would add it manually to this style sheets and JavaScripts in our public directory. But we're not going to do that. We are actually going to just copy this, which this is a CDN hosted version of their Bootstrap library. So we don't ever have to worry about if they come out with an update, downloading the update and uploading that to our server or whatever. Our server is always just going to be able to access this online hosted version of their library. That's always going to be up to date. So that's why we're going to use that. So let's go ahead and add that to our layout.pug right here. And the reason that we're adding this to our layout is because we have an index page here, we have error page here, and say we had a users page and a login page and all sorts of pages. Well, we don't want to import this into every single page, but if we import it into the layout page, and then on every page we extend from the layout page, we're going to get everything that this layout.pug has. So that's why we're doing it here. So let's just paste in that copied link, and you'll notice that this right here is straight HTML versus these being kind of a little bit different looking syntax, which is Pug syntax. Now, Pug is capable of rendering plain HTML, and it'll actually do fine with this, but we're, just for good practice, we're going to make it look the same. So basically all you do is take out that tag bracket and then add parentheses around the kind of information that you're adding about this element. So add parentheses around that, and that's how you turn an HTML link element into just a plain old Pug rendered element right there. So we've imported the CSS from Bootstrap. Let's also go ahead and copy and then paste all the scripts, the JavaScript scripts for Bootstrap as well. And you'll notice that this indentation got a little bit off when we pasted, and sometimes this might not be such a big deal like in HTML, but in Pug it's a huge deal with indentation. And in order to make sure that these scripts belong to the body, we have to make sure they are one indentation away from the body. Okay, so let's go ahead and make all of these some, or oh, that was the wrong thing to do. We don't want that there. We want that over here, and then we're going to go all the way to the end and put end parentheses around those, and there we go. We turned them into Pug elements instead of HTML elements. Also, one last thing we need to do is we need to go to this starter template they have, and we need to copy this meta info, because this is very important for Bootstrap. Otherwise, it's not going to render it correctly if it doesn't have this meta info about how to set it up initially. So we're going to go just below the title and add that in. And remember, to turn it into Pug syntax, we have to take away the HTML tags and add parentheses around the info. All right, so now we got that set up. We got a CSS, JavaScript, and meta info set up for Bootstrap. It's going to be able to render Bootstrap for us. So how do we render some Bootstrap elements? Well, let's go away from our layout and let's go ahead and take a look at index.pug. So in the index, let's add a basic jumbotron from Bootstrap announcing our page and what it is. So let's take this out, and in our content block instead, we're going to add a jumbotron, and in that jumbotron we want some h1, and you see how we know it's inside because of that indentation. Hope you're starting to see that that matters and why that matters. Get the hang of that. So in order to add a class to an element in Pug, we just use dot notation. So dot text primary, and these are Bootstrap classes, if I can type, primary, and then we're just going to say welcome to our Express app. Now you'll see right here we just use dot notation. We didn't have an element in front of it, but with Pug, automatically what's in front of it is a div. So it's just implicitly a div, and you can do this no problem as well, but we don't really need to, since it's just going to add a div before anything that doesn't have an element specified. So this is a div automatically, and this is an h1, and this has a class of jumbotron, and this has a class of text primary. And so underneath of that, we're going to add a p tag with a class of lead. And we say check out the, and then we're going to add a link to this p tag. So once again, since it belongs to the p tag, we indent it, and it's going to be an anchor with a href of /users. Okay, and then what's going to be the text for that link is just specified right here with users. And then in order to keep going with the p tag, we make sure that we're one indentation level below the p tag. We can use that special pipe in order to add on to what's going on right here. So users page. And so this is going to say check out the users page. So in the middle of all the text, we added this link, and then we kept going with the text by piping on some more text to that p element. So you'll see what that looks like if we just go and we go to our localhost 3000, and you'll see welcome to our Express app with that text primary, which turned the color to this nice looking blue, and then let's add a space right there, and then let's reload that, and you'll see that it said check out the, and then a link, and then it kept going with page because we piped it on. Let's actually add the space over here, look a little better. Alright, so now we click that, and it takes us to respond with a resource, which if you remember was what shows up on the user's router. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at our users page that we want to render, because right now it's not very exciting. So let's look at how to render things and then how to style that in a user's page. So let's go ahead and go over to our users router, and right now we'll see we're just sending this message, respond with a resource. Okay, so let's change that by, instead of just doing res.send, let's do res.render, and let's render the users page, which we actually don't have yet, but we're going to create it. So the users page, and then what do we want to render to the users page? Well, we can go ahead and send it a set of options or a set of variables to this users page that we can then use in the users.pug page. So we're going to say we're going to have users, and that users variable is going to be an array of our users. So we're going to say we have Danny, we have Jessica, we have Albert, awesome name, we have Monica, we have Johnny, and yeah, that'll just be it. Alright, so now what we've done is we've sent our users page a variable of users, which is an array of usernames. Okay, so let's go to our views and create that page to be rendered. So by selecting our views and then adding a page to views, users.pug. Alright, so now we're here, and remember, first we want to extend that layout. We want to say this page extends layout, and then there's a block called content that we want to define, and we want to add some content here. Okay, so what do we want to add? Well, Bootstrap has something called a card, which is a pretty versatile little div that we can style and make look how we want. So we're going to go ahead and use that, and we're going to, inside of that card, loop over our users variable and list out each user by name. So let's say .card, and then we are going to say column 2 and padding on the bottom of 4. Now what this is going to do is going to create a div with the class of card. That div is also going to have the class of column2, which, if you don't know about Bootstrap, Bootstrap is made up of 12 columns across the page, and we're setting right here our div to take up the width of 2 of those columns. And then PB, P stands for padding, B stands for bottom, and then 4 is just the 4th iteration of that, or 4th version of that. They have PB 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, with each iteration having a larger padding. And this is just a utility class with Bootstrap. They also have margin we could do, but we're just going to do padding because that's what we want. So inside this card, we have another div called card body, and this is just how we break up the card. This is how Bootstrap does it. So there's a div of card, and then inside that there's a div of card body, and inside that card body we want an h3 with a class of text primary again, just to keep the styling consistent. And then we're just going to say our users. So we're just saying what's going to be listed here, and then we're going to create an unordered list with the class of list group. And then after that, we want to say for user in users, we want to go ahead and create a list item for each of those. So li.list group item, and then equals that user. So remember, there's 2 ways we could use a variable. Right here we're looping over the variable, and it's a for loop, so we have access to this specific iteration of users. So we remember we had what we'd have, like Danny, Jessica, and the other names. So we're looping over each name. So For the first name, we want to create a list item and set the text equal to that user name. So we could do it this way, or we could do it like this. But typically when you're just setting one thing, you'll just say equals user, something like that. So now that we've got that, we can go ahead and check this out in the browser. And let's go ahead and go back to our index page first. So we have welcome to our Express app. Click that users link. Still says respond with a resource. We probably didn't save it, did we? We saved the view page, but we didn't save this new rendering of the view page instead of just sending a message. So let's save that file and then go ahead and reload this again. And you'll see right here, our users, Danny, Jessica, Albert, Monica, Johnny. And that's actually pretty skinny, so let's go ahead and tell it to take up the width of maybe 4 columns instead of 2, so we double it. And there we go, that looks a little better. Our users, Danny, Jessica, Albert, Monica, Johnny. And this is our unlisted, an unordered list, which is a list group, and then each one is a list group item. And this right here, this larger div, that's our card, and this whole section with the users and the list is the card body. So that's just how Bootstrap breaks things up. But you'll see this looks a lot nicer than if we just created a plain old looking HTML unordered list, and it also looks better on the index page than if we had just listed out an H1 and then some text. This looks a lot better. So that's the power of Bootstrap, quickly and easily being able to create these nice looking items, and you learn these as you go along because Bootstrap has a wonderful documentation of everything where they explain how they lay out everything in the grid. They show you all their components. So here's some alerts with some nice looking backgrounds and all that and different things you can do with them. You've got some nice looking buttons. You've got a carousel where you can loop slides around and stuff like that. Pretty neat. You've got inputs so you can create forms that look really nice, really quick. There's the Jumbotron we use, which is the big large div that looks nice. And they've got all sorts of stuff like this. So go ahead and check them out, read through their documentation a little bit, and you'll start to get used to it. And the more you get used to it, the more you'll love it, the more you'll start using it. And we're certainly going to be using it in our projects, so hopefully you get a taste of it there. So in the next lesson, we're going to be looking at the database. We're going to move away from all this creating pages, and we're going to start looking at the database a little bit so that once we learn the database, we can start to integrate it into our app, so then we can create a full functioning Node.js app with Express and MongoDB. And MongoDB is the database we're going to be using to persist our data across multiple sessions and multiple users. So I'll see you in that next lesson, and I'm pretty excited to show you how MongoDB works. See you there.